Hi, I'm Josh Hockman with Park Industries Customer Service Department. On this video, we are going to show you how to reference your X-axis on a Titan 3K or 4K. So when you're referencing also, you do want to check on your setup screen and your offsets tab here that all your dots are green. If you are replacing the motor or you have an issue with the motor, you may have to capture your reference point before you start to actually reference it and teach it reference position on the machine. So if any of these are black, capture that first and then cycle power, and then you can proceed here with referencing the axis. Also, before you reference anything, if you have it that it's green, and everything's good to go, it would be a good idea to check your backlash on the axis that you're working on, because if you do have to remove that gear out of the rack and that the X-axis or whichever axis you're working on here is moving a little bit, that will change your reference point if you reference first before checking backlash. So if you can get a system on, I would suggest checking backlash on that axis first. And we do have a video on how to check your backlash also on our website. So to start out with here, we'll make sure we're signed in. You do need to be signed in as a supervisor or higher. And then we will, once we're signed in, we're going to come to our setup screen and our limits screen. Now, if you have a Titan 3K, you do want to take note of your limits here. So I would recommend taking a picture of this screen before you start. The 4K has a reset to default button when we're done that we will be using. The 3K does not, so you do need to make sure you get those values set back to what they are. And we're going to come up to our X-axis here, and this is on a 4700. So we're going to change our X minimum limit. That is right now at negative 50 thousandths. And we're also going to change our X mid minimum limit here. That's at the 7.5. We're going to change that to a higher value to make sure we have full travel limit here that we can get all the way to our end procs. So our max limit's 182. I'm just going to set this over this, and I'm going to set this to a negative 185. I'm also going to set this one here, the mid, to a 185. The max limit, I'm not doing anything touching that one. Now we'll come to our diagnostic screen and our I/O inputs. And we are going to be looking at the X reference procs. And we can see that that is lit up green right now. So we're going to drive our X-axis to the negative direction, so to the left side of the Titan, until we see that turn red. When you are driving this, make sure you are driving slow. Our limits are completely open, so we can crash the machine if we do go too fast. So we're going to take our pendant, turn our spindle to disable. We're going to go to our X-axis, and you can see I am all the way on the positive side right now. The spindle's on this side of the machine. So I'm going to start out on 10 thou increments, drive a little bit faster, but once I get close to that end, I will slow this down. Okay, I am starting to get pretty close to the end of my travel limit here. So I am gonna switch to 1 thou increments now, my F1 button on my pendant. And I'm just gonna slowly drive this while I only watch my screen here and my X negative reference prox number. Once that turns red, I do want to stop right away, because if I do keep traveling, then I will crash the machine into the end. Okay, now you can see my reference prox light turned red. So now I'm going to just slowly drive on 1 thou increments yet until the prox light turns green. I'm going to be driving in the positive direction, so I drive off of that prox. This is the more crucial part. You do want to make sure as soon as that turns green that you do stop. Once that turns green, then what we do is our X-axis will stay on. We'll click our F2 button to move to 10 thou increments. And we're going to drive 50 thousandths in the positive direction off of that prox yet. So if you are on 10 thousandths increments, it'll be 5 clicks on your hand wheel here. Once you do have the 5 clicks, now we can come to our setup screen, and we'll come to our offsets. And we are working with our X-axis, so we will capture our reference point on our X-axis here. It will ask you to cycle power. We will click yes. I like to, before I do cycle power, I'm going to come to my limit screen. And if you're on a 4K, I'm going to just press to restore to default. I want to make sure I do not forget about that here. We will have to come back and do a little bit more work, but I'm going to restore this to default. If you do have a 3K, make sure you put your original values back into there. Then we'll exit out. And if it asks you to take a backup, I would suggest doing the backup there. We already done one on this machine for the day, so that's why it's not asking us. So now we'll exit out and we'll power down for a minute or two, and then we will come back and we'll show you the rest of the setup that you need to do. Okay, now that we cycled power on our machine, our park program is back up again. We are logged back in as a supervisor hire. So first thing that we're going to do, if you did not do that before, is we're going to our setup tab and our limits tab. Make sure if you're on the 4K, reset to default, or if you're on the 3K, make sure you enter in what your default numbers are. Very important to make sure you do that. Next step would be is to check your tool pocket locations, because with referencing, those location positions may have changed a little. So if we navigate to our tool rack, and we can set our X and Y position using our jigs to make sure that the spindle's centered on there. We do have a video that does explain in full how to set your tool rack locations. You also do want to go to your overhead laser tab, and you're going to want to run a laser to core hole test where you fine adjust that laser into that core hole where your spindle drilled your core hole to make sure that that is perfectly centered on there. We also do have a video that fully explains how to run that. After you do that, I would suggest running a test edge just to make sure everything looks good, and then you should be done. As always, if you have any questions, please give our customer service department a call and we'll be glad to help. Thank you.